What makes a good pilot episode? Friday Night Lights has one of the best series openings I've seen in a while. The show follows the Texas Dillon Panthers through their football season as the players and coaches encounter the conflicts that are bound to rise in small-town America, where football is everything. Hello everyone, it is your boy Swear and welcome to my corner for a brand new video. I watched the first episode of Friday Night Lights yesterday and then proceeded to binge a subsequent 4 episodes of the series. I was that drawn in by it. I spent the following day wondering why. Why is it that some series can grab your attention from the very first episode, and others fail to do so? Through the lens of Friday Night Lights, I shall attempt to decipher the key ingredients for what I believe makes a good pilot episode. Chapter 1. Identity, or what I like to call it, hook, line, and sinker. As a pilot episode, it is your duty to grip the audience as quickly as possible. The viewers have absolutely no loyalty to your show, and thus they need to know exactly what it is that they are getting themselves into. You need to set and establish the tone from the get-go to solidify the permanence of your audience. Within the first 6 minutes and 54 seconds of Friday Night Lights, I knew that I wanted to watch this show. Without giving away any of the plot, I knew exactly which characters we would be following and what their objectives were. And after receiving that information, I was completely on board. But aside from that, the pilot episode must convey to the audience the identity and DNA of the show. With Friday Night Lights, the cinematography, the handheld camera, the darker color palette, its fast pace and realistic dialogue all helped tremendously at cultivating the vibe of the series. We discussed the importance of cultivating a vibe in my previous video on Avatar, so go check that out if you want to discuss this topic some more. So much can be said and established in such a short amount of time, which is why the beginning of a series is so crucial. The start of a show ultimately needs to create enough momentum to encourage the viewers to continue watching the series. Now, before we move on to Chapter 2, I'd like to mention an example of where this idea is done poorly. The Office. For anyone who has seen The Office, they would know that there is a significant change in the identity of the show between seasons 1 and the rest of the series. While the show does grow into a fantastic phenomenon and one of my favorite series of all time, the first season is often looked at as a throwaway. And that's mostly because the first season failed to establish a compelling identity for the show. And because of this, the showrunners opted for a soft reboot in the second season. Now, I love The Office, so this hurts to say, but in comparison from what the show goes on to become, season 1 is subpar at best, and doesn't reflect the series as a whole. All this to say, a beginning to a series doesn't always kill it immediately, but it definitely severely hinders its impact and effect on an audience. Now, I'm only a couple episodes deep into Friday Night Lights, but I hope that the momentum that has been created so far is not lost as the series goes on. Chapter 2. Desire and Empathy. Or as I like to call it, a reason to stay. Now that the intended audience have decided that they want to watch your pilot episode, you need to give them reasons to stay. You do this by letting the audience interact with your characters, learning who they are and what their motivations are, and why. If we look at Coach Eric Taylor, from the very beginning of the episode, we find out that he is the newly appointed coach of the football team, and the entire town has major expectations of this year's football team to win the state championship. The show does a good job of displaying how important it is to the community and how much of a disaster it would be if the coach and, ergo, the team did not live up to everyone's expectations. Thus, a huge amount of pressure is put on these characters, and naturally, as an audience, you start to sympathize, and you're filled with a curiosity. Can these people do what they're trying to do? The players on the team, they don't all necessarily like each other, but they have a common goal, and that is to win. Can they do it? We as an audience have a natural inclination and desire to find out. We are immediately given reasons to stay, but more importantly, we need answers to the questions that have been set up. Chapter 3. Payoff, or as I like to call it, carrot at the end of the stick. The ending of your show's first episode is of paramount importance. The taste that you leave in your audience's mouth will determine whether or not they sit down for another episode. and thus you must actively reward them for their attention in this first episode and set them up with desires to find out what happens next. Friday Night Lights does this flawlessly. The final act of this show's pilot is so good it left me flabbergasted. There I was, sitting so intensely, wondering how the ending was going to unfold. How would this episode end? Without spoiling the plot, I was surprised at how well the show was able to get me to care about the characters and what was happening, when I'd only invested like 45 minutes into the series. And to come full circle, that's how this video that you're watching came to be. I needed to figure out exactly how and why I cared in the final moments of that first episode. And my belief is that these 3 chapters that I've laid out came together to provide the perfect cocktail for a first episode. And that's the reason that I felt incentivized to continue watching the show. My belief is that if the first 2 chapters that I've discussed are done well, then in my opinion, the 3rd chapter, the payoff in a series pilot, should be relatively easy to come by. I've seen a lot of shows, and it's very rare that I've been captivated to this degree this early on. And I think the things that we have explored in this video is the reason why. Friday Night Lights has a fantastic series pilot, and I'm excited to see what comes next in the town of Dillon, Texas. If you liked today's video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing. We've got lots of more diverse content on the way, so please stay tuned for that.